One of the most likable players in baseball just joined some real elite company.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, there's my lower third. You can call me Sully. I am a baseball podcaster, have been for well over a decade now, and we're right smack dab in the middle of my sixth full season here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, guaranteed fit only. Available to U.S. customers. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Before we jump headfirst into praising Andrew McCutchen and talk about a couple other things going on, including the fact we have it's Monday, or you're probably listening to this on Monday. I'm streaming it late on Sunday night here on the West Coast. And this Monday is going to be a special day for multiple, for all of baseball and for one team in particular. And I like special days. I like special annual days. I think we should have a few more. And in case you don't know this, I have been also a guest host on Locked On A's this week. And I have not been just repeating what I do here. If you want to double your Sully for this week, and boy, I know those Dodger lovers and Ohtani lovers from last week can't wait to have more of me on their screen. But if you want to double the Sully, then follow me on Locked On A's this week, as well as Locked On MLB. Let's go over the trivia question. And the trivia question was about changing horses in not just midstream, but almost at the end of the year. The Milwaukee Brewers, when they made the postseason for the first time since 1982, when they won the wild card in 2008, made a managerial change with less than a month. And my question was, who was the manager who essentially got fired with less than a month to go? Scott Horstmeyer and Big John 08865 both got right. It was Dale Swain, former Red Sox third base coach, who was on the former Milwaukee Brewer, who was on the Brewers coaching staff. And Yost got the heave and then the hoe, and Swain took over and managed the team, and they got to Game 4 of the division series against the eventual World Series champion Philadelphia Phillies. By the way, Big John also had issue with my episode where I called for John Schneider to be fired from the Toronto Blue Jays, and he said, isn't it a bit early for a manager to be fired? Aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper? And I said, no, it's not, because I brought this up a year ago. In fact, I brought this up more than a year ago. It's not a 10-game sample size. It's more than a year sample size. But hey, give the Blue Jays credit. They lost that first game badly to Colorado, but then came back to win the series. Jose Barrios did very well. And speaking of that, let's just go over quickly who owned baseball on April 14th. The aforementioned Jose Barrios threw 7 innings, struck out 7 to help the Blue Jays win 5-0 against the Rocks. Jose Altuve homered twice to lead the Astros past the Rangers. We'll get to that a little bit later. And 2 Pirates owned baseball. Jack Sawinski hit a grand slam, and Mitch Keller pitched well. Pirates beat Philadelphia 92. I gave half wobs to Brandon Drury, who homered in the Angels' loss to Boston. Bailey Ober pitched well for the Tigers, or for the Twins, but the Tigers beat the Twins. Ryan Fernandez did well out of the bullpen for St. Louis, but they were shut out by Arizona 5-0. And Trey Turner went 3 for 3, including a home run. But the Phillies lost that 9-2 game to the Bucks. And speaking of the Bucks, it was Andrew McCutchen who is back with the Pirates, as he should be, essentially wrapping up what has been a fine career. He is exactly the type of player who falls under the fan favorite, who falls under wonderful, wonderful career, maybe just shy of the Hall of Fame. I kind of a career that reminds me a little bit of someone like maybe a Fred Lynn with the Red Sox, maybe a Will Clark with the Giants, someone who really, who did very well, had a terrific career, and you sort of look at it and you maybe get his uniform retired, probably will come up short in the Hall of Fame discussion, but 16 years, played for several teams. I bet you forgot he played for the Milwaukee Brewers. I did. I did. But for 4 straight years, was in the top 5 of the MVP vote in the mid 2010s, winning the MVP in 2013. And this is probably his final year. It's his 37th year. He's an insanely likable player, has done a little bit of everything, has won gold gloves, has won silver sluggers, and most importantly, helped turn around the culture of Pittsburgh Pirate baseball. Remember, it had been since 1992, since before the wild card, that the Pirates not only didn't make the postseason, but they didn't have a winning record since the Francisco Cabrera hit. And of course, that hung over the franchise. Francisco Cabrera. He was the third string catcher of the Braves, who came up with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th of Game 7 of the NLCS, and the Pirates on the verge of clinching. And he hit the 2-run single to clinch it for the Braves. Barry Bonds and Doug Drabeck left immediately, and the Pirates never recovered until McCutchen and company came by, and they won a trip to the postseason 3 straight years. And if they didn't face, they were 3 straight years, they were eliminated by in a do or die game by a complete game shutout by Adam Wainwright in Game 5 of the division series in 2013, Madison Bumgarner in the wild card game in 2014, and in the single best Pirate team of the bunch, the 2015 team lost to what's his name, Arrieta of Chicago. It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. But it changed the culture of the Pirates around, and now the Pirates are good. They're filled with good young talent, and they have a division title looming in their sights. But he his 300th home run today. McCutchen, he hit his 300th home run, and I remember thinking, "Oh, that's terrific." And then I saw a couple of things. Steel City Nation on Twitter, that's what it is, S City Nation 412, posted a thing saying McCutchen is now of just 13 players all time, 13, to record at least 2,000 career hits, 400 doubles, 45 triples, 300 home runs, and 200 stolen bases. Think of that Venn diagram: 2,000 career hits, 400 doubles, 45 triples, 300 home runs, and 200 stolen bases. Here are some of the names on that list: Henry Aaron, Carlos Beltran, Barry Bonds, George Brett, Joe Carter, Andre Dawson, Steve Finley, incredibly underrated player, Reggie Jackson, Willie Mays, Frank Robinson, Larry Walker, Dave Winfield. Now, Aaron, Brett, Dawson, Jackson, Mays, Robinson, Walker, Winfield. 8 of those 13, or 8 of those 14 are in the Hall of Fame. Bond should be in the Hall of Fame. Come at me on that. Beltran, I think, eventually will be. The ones who are teetering there, I mean, you have players like Joe Carter and Steve Finley, who are not Hall of Famers, but are really on the cusp. And that's an incredible group that Andrew McCutchen has belonged to. 13 of them. Think of so many great players. I mean, Ruth isn't on there. Mantle isn't on there. Griffey Jr. isn't on there. Tony Gwynn's not. I mean, think about Paul Molitor is not on there. Think about the Hall of Famers who I thought would probably be on that list. Ripken's not on there. Yount's not on there. And by the way, baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth, point out that there are 26 players with 300 home runs and 200 stolen bases. And that group includes McCutchen, Trout, Braun, Beltran, Soriano, Bonds, Sosa, Walker, A-Rod. Yeah, I thought for sure A-Rod would be on that list with 2004 in the group of 14. But no, A-Rod isn't. That really surprises me. I just noticed that. Ronnie Gant, Sheffield, Strawberry, Bagwell, Brett, Carter, Finley, Reggie Sanders, another really underrated player, Canseco, Dawson, Reggie Jackson, Bobby Bonds, boy, the Bonds family, Dave Winfield, Henry Aaron, Don Baylor, Frank Robinson, and someone named Willie Mays. So these are the groups of people that McCutchen will now for all time be mentioned alongside them. I'm not saying he's as good as them, and I'm not saying he belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think he is in that sort of not quite there Joe Carter, Steve Finley group. But it just shows you what a wonderful career both Carter and Finley have if they're able to be mentioned in the same name as everyone there. So tip your cap to Mr. McCutchen. And boy, I really hope, I mean, I have such a soft spot for the Pittsburgh Pirates anyway, but I really hope if the Pirates do indeed win, they win it with McCutchen doing something big. Because McCutchen helped turn that franchise around once. Be nice to see him win it all and join some of those players I just mentioned with a World Series ring. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. eBay Motors. Let's ride. I've been told I'm a competitive person, but, maybe that's true. I don't like to be wrong. When I am and I'm caught, like the Otani thing, I'll admit that I'm wrong. But most of the time, I want to be right and I want to win. All right, fine. I got a competitive side. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist of Monopoly where you play not one, not two, but on hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part for me is messing with my friends. I'm that kind of a guy. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like Monopoly, but now I can rob their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboard show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people from all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free at the App Store or at Google Play. Hey, sports fans and football fans, it's time for Locked On's NFL Mock Draft live on April 17th at 7 Eastern Time, streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 Eastern Time to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is on April 17th at 7 Eastern Time, streaming live at Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. It is Jackie Robinson Day, and all the players will be wearing 42 as well. They should be. And I believe this is something we have to keep doing. We have to do it. It's a wonderful, wonderful celebration. I tip my hat to Ken Griffey Jr. for being one of the main people to spearhead the entire idea of honoring the legacy of Jackie Robinson with everyone wearing number 42. Forces people to think about what it means and what he meant and what he sacrificed and what it would mean to have a segregated league. And also to remind people, it didn't happen that long ago. It's not like it's ancient history. Jackie Robinson was alive in my lifetime. And his wife, his widow, Rachel Robinson was alive in your lifetime. How do I know that? Well, if you're listening to me right now, I'll assume you're above the age of a baby. And Rachel Robinson, his widow, is still alive. In fact, every year when I do the in memoriam video, I make sure to include some of the players who were part of the Negro Leagues because it wasn't that long ago, folks. It was not that long ago that baseball was segregated. And we have to understand that not just life and civil rights and everything have gotten better since then, and we still have a ways to go, but the quality of baseball has as well. Think about the list that I just read about Andrew McCutchen, about those 14 players that now he's one of. Henry Aaron played in the Negro Leagues. Beltran would not have been allowed to play beforehand. He was too dark skinned. Bonds would not have been allowed to play. Dawson would not have been allowed to play. Reggie Jackson would not have been allowed to play. Willie Mays played in the Negro Leagues. I believe Frank Robinson did as well. Dave Winfield would not have been allowed to play. And guess what? Neither would have McCutchen. Of that group of 14 players who have done the 2,000 hits, 400 doubles, 45 triples, 300 home runs, and 200 stolen bases, out of 14, 9 of them would not have been allowed to play. They would have been one of those obscure names. Some of you may never have heard of them, or like become a shadowy figure like Turkey Stearns back there. That's what we're celebrating amongst everything else, along with the civil rights movement, along with improving as a nation and putting a magnifying glass of the things that we still have to do. By the way, a lot of people at the time of Jackie Robinson probably would have used the term woke when talking about the Dodgers. A lot of people then were saying, stick to baseball. Why bring this into it? They have their own league. Why can't we just play? Why do you have to force your agenda on us? I'm just going to leave that right there. Also, it's a great day in Boston. Every year, Boston gets to have this Monday as a special day on the calendar. The Red Sox always have this day because it's the day of the marathon, and it's Patriots Day. I grew up in New England. I grew up in the suburbs of Boston, and Patriots Day was always a huge day. It was the day of the marathon, and it was a school holiday. And I was stunned when my family moved to California when I was in high school. It's Patriots Day. Blank stares. No one knew what the hell I was talking about. I didn't know it was only a regional holiday. And it was not just to celebrate the Boston Marathon and the Red Sox playing an early game. It was the beginning of the Revolutionary War. It was the Battle of Lexington and Concord, which I thought was significant for all of America. But what do I know? But I love that the schedule makes sure that the Red Sox are there that day. I think the schedule should also make accommodations to make sure some other things happen. I think there should always be a New York team home on September 11th, and there should always be playing on September 11th. That should be another day that doesn't fade off into obscurity. I'm already seeing with some young kids that I'm working with in the school, and also some of my TAs who are in their early 20s, where September 11th might as well have been the Battle of Gettysburg. It's this thing that happened before their consciousness, and they don't really know. Keep things alive. Keep the memories of the beginning of the Revolutionary War. Keep Jackie's legacy alive. Keep alive the memory of September 11th. I believe there should always be a team playing in Texas for Juneteenth. That's where the final notification for the Emancipation Proclamation, the freedom of the slaves, took place in Texas. And so when we celebrate Juneteenth, that's what we should make sure there's at least one of the Texas teams playing to honor that legacy. There should always be a game in Philadelphia on July 4th. The Phillies should always be home on July 4th. That should be a day where we celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It was actually signed on July 2nd, but we celebrate July 4th. Also, I think we should have on Memorial Day, there should always be a game being played in Washington, D.C. Let me know if you have other ideas of specific cities and specific teams that should make sure they're always home. I'm sorry, the Blue Jays should never have a home game on July 4th. but they should always have a home game on Canada Day. Let's meet ourselves halfway. So let me know in the comments and everything if you think there should be another regional day and a day that we should celebrate to make sure that someone's always home for that day, that we can celebrate and have a ball game and celebrate a legacy. Put it down here in the comments or let me know on Twitter or whatever it's called, and let me know, because I love annual games. We got 162 games. There should be some yard markers and ones that are consistent every year. When it comes to your financial future and you think you've done it all, you've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can, and now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses. That's Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They're the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspective, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors. It's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you find your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination. Yahoo Finance. That's yahoofinance.com. Hey, here's a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day, with local extras of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. By the way, we are doing a live stream. Mikey B is sending some things here on the chat, and he asked me, do you think the Phils will get it together? Yes. There's too much talent there. Our taxes are due today, so there's a lot of time for things to click with this team. I don't think when you have teams that are filled with that much talent and that much ability, you sometimes just got to let the 162 games flow. You don't believe me? Take a look at the Astros. You could not possibly start the season worse than the Astros. They got swept by the Yankees. They could only win games where, this new guy Bronco was throwing no hitters, and they stumbled into Texas looking absolutely inept. Okay, and they've stumbled, they've bumbled, and everything seems to have gone wrong. They went to Texas, their rivals in Texas, and guess what happened? Jose Altuve woke up. He homered, and I mentioned he homered again. And despite the fact that the Astros are still in last place, they're 6-11 and all that stuff, the Astros are, say it with me, 2.5 games out of first. I know it's early, but the reason I bring that up is the rest of the division has stumbled and bumbled, and now it'll just take a modest winning streak and the Astros will be in first place. Of all the stumbling, bumbling that the Phillies have done, guess what? They're only 2 games out. That all this, you could look up and say, well, when are they going to get together? Well, in 3 or 4 days, they could be in first place. So relax, Mikey B. No need to get worried. By the way, I told you I was doing this is my second week of doing a show for Locked On A's. I want to play you a clip of one of the segments I did for the Locked On A's show, where I essentially pitched to A's fans to put aside their bitterness and go see a game. And mind you, if they heeded my advice, they would have had a fun weekend, because the A's took 2 out of 3 from Washington, and both of them were thrilling come-from-behind victories. And, oh yeah, by the way, the A's are only 1 game out of first place, and they've won their last 3 series. Things can happen and things can turn around. But here's a clip of me on Locked On A's making a gentle plea to A's fans. You're going to miss those days where there's only 6,000 or 7,000 people in the Coliseum, but they're all going nuts. and playing celebration at the end of a game where they have to make that big long run from the dugout to home plate on a walk-off win. You're going to miss that. You're going to miss those moments. And when the bitterness fades away, you're going to say, I wish I could see it one more time. Wish you can get one more Oakland shirt or piece of memorabilia. Yeah, it goes in Fisher's pocket, but you know what? At this point, it's not going to change anything. You know, the Coliseum's going to be raised eventually, and they're going to put buildings up there, or have it be a complex. I don't know what it will be, and neither do you. But I'm going to tell you a little story of something that happened to me. My father, may rest in peace, was a Giants fan. And he was a Giant fan back in the days of the Polo Grounds in New York. And the Polo Grounds were, for a period of time, the stadium in New York. The Giants, when they played in New York, played there. And the Giants initially were the great dynasty of New York. For a while, the Yankees played there too. When Babe Ruth first arrived from Boston to New York, the Yankees were playing their home games in the Polo Grounds. And the 1921 and 22 World Series were played entirely in the Polo Grounds, as they were between the Yankees and the Giants. When the Giants left for San Francisco after the 1957 season, the Mets were formed in 1962, and they played in the Polo Grounds until Shea Stadium was finished. Also, the New York football Giants played in the Polo Grounds for a period of time as well. That was the hub of New York sports, and NFL championships, prize fights, World Series titles, some of the most famous moments in baseball history, the Bobby Thompson home run, Willie Mays catch, the first years of Babe Ruth, so many great moments were played right there. And when the Mets abandoned the Polo Grounds for Shea Stadium, the Wreckers Ball showed up, and it was in Harlem, right across the river from Yankee Stadium. The Yankees built that stadium basically as a giant middle finger to the Polo Grounds. As they were kicked out of the Polo Grounds, they built a big, huge stadium right across the river where they eventually started outdrawing the Giants. They leveled the Polo Grounds, and they built up a series of apartments up there in Harlem. They were called the Polo Ground Apartments, and there was a big banner that said, "Welcome to the Polo Grounds, the home of the Giants and Willie Mays," and there was a plaque where home plate was. I remember I was living in New York at the time in 1995, and it was actually around the time of the strike, and all I wanted to do was go to a baseball game. Lots of people were bitter. Lots of people were angry that the strike was going on, and I knew the second the strike was over, I was going to be at the first game. Do you know why? I was bitter and angry because I wanted to see a game. And when the games began, I was there. I wasn't worried about punishing the owner. I wanted to experience baseball myself. But it was the winter of 95, and the lockout and strike was going on, and no one knew when the season was going to start. And I walked over to the Polo Grounds in Harlem, and I was standing on the steps that looked down at the Polo Ground apartments, and I was taking photographs. And these three boys from must about 7, 8, or 9 years old, who were living in the projects in Harlem, were there, and they saw me, and they asked me, "Mister, what are you taking a picture of?" And I said, "I'm taking a picture of where the ballpark used to be." And one of the kids looked at me incredulously, and he pointed across the river. He said, No. That's the ballpark," pointing to Yankee Stadium, which you could see from the hill. And I said, "No." I pointed to the apartments, and I said, "Do you guys live down there?" And these three kids said, "Yeah." And I said, "Did you know where you used to live used to be a stadium? The Yankees played there, the Mets played there, the Giants played there. It's called the Polo Grounds." He said, "Yeah, it's the Polo Ground Apartments." I said, "Yeah, that used to be a baseball stadium." And the three kids looked at me, and it was clear that they're like, "Wait, this guy's not BSing us." And they suddenly looked over at where they lived, and they said, one of them said, "Oh, that's cool." Now look it, I don't know if they did any research of it. I didn't know if they were wondering, what the heck is this weird white guy with a camera taking pictures of our apartment doing? But for a moment, the place where they lived turned into a very cool place. And they realized I'm living on kind of a sacred sports ground. Eventually, that's what's going to happen to the Coliseum. You're going to remember the A's played there. Maybe your kids will if you're about my age. But a generation from now, you might as well be talking about the Roman Coliseum, not the Oakland Coliseum, something that took place so long ago. And then when you get a generation after that, it'll be a mere rumor saying, wow, can you believe that sports took place here? Yeah. It's not a rumor now. Put your bitterness aside. Bitterness fades away. Put your anger aside. Anger will be subsided. Think about that moment a couple of years from now where all you want to do is go to an A's game. You can now. Reverse boycotts, sell the team, none of it's going to work. They're gone. They're gone. There is no best case scenario. So now be a little selfish. Treat yourself, because in 2025, you're not going to be able to do it. And in 2035, you'll say, God, why couldn't I put my anger on the shelf and go to another game? And in 2045, 20 years after they moved, and they're probably still playing in Sacramento, you'll say, I'd give anything to go to a game. That person 20 years from now is talking to you right now. Go to the game. Tickets are available. Well, that's my thoughts to A's fans and thoughts to you all as well. Hey, here is my trivia question for you today, and that is this. One city has hosted 3 different World Series, and all 3 of those World Series went 7 games. What city am I talking about? That's a trivia question. So, honoring the legacy of Andrew McCutchen, Jackie Robinson, the shots fired at Concord and Lexington, and for A's fans to say, do you know what? Let's just go one more time. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.